For this part of the test, we're going to, or demonstration, we're going to look at the QA software. So I've set up a test job where I've run it all the way through the system. I printed out what would have been the sticky labels for all the boxes, would have been the pallet marker for the pallet, and the production traveler that came out of the blast area because the first part of the recipe was GOF, which means it went through blast. Took it all the way through till we got to unracking, which then we put the parts on trays, and I put 10 parts distributed across each tray, 4 trays all together. So that's what we're going to do for the test. After that, a part of their recipe was oil, so they got oiled. Finished that part, which set them up for going to QA, because that would be the next step in the process. So if we look at the QAQ, we're going to see the 4 travelers in the queue. I only have one job in there right now. It's sorted by due date and showing us that there are 40 parts in the queue. And I'm just going to go ahead and select the first traveler. So we did get our part image. What we didn't get was our original box image, and that's because for the test, I forgot to put the box in the when I palletized it. I didn't get the box image in there. Otherwise, that would have populated as well. So we get a sample picture of the actual part from that customer that comes from our parts database, and we get a picture of the box that comes from when we palletize. We grab a picture of the box. So hopefully that's a big help to an inspector, and probably more pointedly one that may not have all that much experience, but definitely a picture of the box that you're looking for, right? Because at this point we're putting the stuff back in boxes. So the top part is all the data about the customer, the job, the traveler number. The order quantity is 400. There's 400 parts remaining to inspect because we have not inspected any yet. So that's what we're going to do now. And then we see the recipe that it went through, so we know what we're inspecting against. You know, is the anodized good? Does the dye look good? Is the seal good? Is the oil good? And then it goes to 200. So what I'm going to do for this test is I'm going to create some rework out of the test and also put parts in boxes. So I'm going to say I'm looking at these 10 parts on this tray, and I'm going to say, okay, I just found one and I want to send it to rework. So I'm going to say it's one part, and we're going to say it's bare metal. It just needs a touch up, but we're going to say it's serialized. So in the notes field, I'm going to give it a serial number. And then I'm inspecting parts, the second one. I come across another one. Okay, and it's the exact same thing. It's bare metal, needs touch up, and I'm giving it a serial number. And what I'm going to do is do a third one for the same reason. So I have 3 total that equal the same failure reason with the same corrective action. So we're going to say it's touch up, and it has a serial number. So I have 3 parts. I have number of parts rejected so far is 3. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it 5. So I'm also going to send a rework. And I'm going to say this one's 2 parts. And we're going to say it's a DFL issue, and it needs to do a strip and recoat. And I'm just going to put test note in the field here for notes. You don't have to put anything in the notes field, just demonstrating how the notes fields work. So what's going on here? So I've got 5 that are going to rework, and I'm putting 5 good parts in a box, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to say, okay, we're going to complete this process. We're going to say I'm done with this tray. So this one's completed. It wants me to confirm that I am the inspector and I did all 10 parts. So I confirmed I looked at all 10 parts. Am I ready to print the labels? Why would I not be ready? Because if I were looking at one tray and I know there's other trays behind it for the same job, well, I might want to just collect all the rework at one time and then put the rework reasons together under one traveler for rework. But right now, for demonstration, I'm just going to say yes, go ahead and print that. So what I get is, I get 2 different reworks. So we had 5 parts. But what the system's done now is it's put them together based on certain conditions, right? So we had 2 parts that need to go through the whole process. It's got to start with a strip and then go through the whole process. So it kept those two parts together, and it was one entry when I put it in as rework. So it's a DFL issue. I see my test note there and who the inspector is. The second one was 3 parts. We said each one of the parts was bare metal. So what the system did now is it put all these together and said, okay, this all really equals one record. So I'm going to create one record for this issue because the recipe is touch-up. The reason is bare metal. That all matches. And then on the notes field, you can see it expanded to show me all 3 serial numbers. So I've got 3 parts, those serial numbers, that recipe for that reason. All right. So that all looks good. Now, I was told that Greystone wanted a process where the coach verifies all of the stuff going to rework. So I've implemented that under the coaches section. We're going to say it's rework not approved. When we go to rework not approved, there's only one job in there right now. And it shows us exactly what we've got in the rework travelers. So I have bare metal, quantity of 3, and it's showing me the notes that go with it. So I can see the serializations that go with that one. Here's my rework ID, which would match the paper printout for the rework traveler. And here's what our options are, what we could do, what's going on here. So a lot of things can happen at this point, right? So this got, when I was programming, it was very confusing. What do I do? What do I do? So let's really try to step through this. I may not have captured all the different things that can go on. I'm sure we'll get more into that when I can work with one of the coaches, Jen, somebody at Greystone, and see if we need to add more options in here. But for right now, here's what I got. First option. Coach is looking at it and says, you know what? These 2 strip and recoat, I agree with them. It is a DFL issue. I agree with strip and recoat. Just click the green check arrow, and it just says it's okay. I don't need to look at that. That's fine. Let it go through. On the touch-up one, let's say that that's not what we wanted, right? That, okay, I'm looking at it. I'm going, wait a second. This is not, out of these 3 parts, I don't agree that all 3 are touch-up. I got an issue with one of them, right? So what we can do, and here's a couple of things we can do. This first icon for the button here is a duplication of this record, so it maintains everything about this record while creating a new record, but giving us an opportunity to change the data. So if I click on that, I get a new one. It automatically says, yes, it is touch-up, but what's your reason? And I say, well, the reason wasn't bare metal. It was excessive marks. And I don't think it should be touch-up. I think it should be strip and recoat, and it's 1 part, which now means the quantity on this one is 2 parts. So once I've done that, I then want to go ahead and reprint a fresh rework traveler to go with that, and I want to print one to go with the new one I just made. So now you see I've got these 2, and it says there's 2 parts, and there's the serial numbers. Now what I didn't do, we're going to go back to the screen here in a second, is I didn't move the serial number down, and I should have done that. So that was matched to, here's the original traveler of 3 parts. We now have 1 part that has a different defect reason and a different recipe for its rework. And then we have a second one, which showing the correct number of parts is 2, which really just matches the first one. Now going back to the screen, all I had to do was either cut and paste or drag this number down, and I could say, okay, that was the serial number that I removed, and then we take it off of that one. Now, if I'd have done that first, it would have not had those serial numbers printed there. They would have printed the 1 serial number where it was supposed to. So this is what the coach has the ability to do. They also have the ability to just create a complete new blank rework for this job, because everything's job specific, right? So I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to say, okay, I just looked at it again, and I don't agree that both of these serialized parts are going for the same reasons, right? Or I could say I'm going to go ahead and create a new record for this touch-up one, and I'm going to say that I'm picking a new reason. I'm going to say it's burnt. It is touch-up, but it's burnt. It's 1 part, and it's this serial number right here. So I'll delete that from the first one, and I'll knock this down to only now being 1. So now I have to reprint each one of those. So I've got that print, and then I have to reprint this new one that I made here. So now I've got that. And you can see here on the new touch-up one that I made, it did bring the serial number in because I brought it into the box. So one part for that reason. And I understand that this is not really how it goes. I'm just showing you how you've got all these options on what you can do right here in the screen when looking at the parts, right? Now, the other thing you could do is you could completely delete one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, you know what? I looked at this third part, this last part left on this first Traveler that we got. And actually, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I rubbed it with a cloth. It looks great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this record, and I'm going to take this one and put it in the box with the other 5. So what I'm going to do is change the 5 to a 6, and I'm going to delete that record. So now that's gone. So now this is what we got, 2, 1, and 1. I have my printouts, and then I can simply just say, this is all as I think it should be as the coach. And that's what there is to, that's how the coach would keep track of or alter what's coming out of QA. Again, I mean, I'm assuming that I'm doing it the way Greystone was wanting it done, based on the very limited conversations I've had with anybody about the topic, right? All right, so what's going to happen next in QA with this specific job is that we got to bring the work back, right? So for that, I am going to go to the iPad because we want to be able to scan the rework back into, once it's gone through the process. And of course, now I don't remember which one of these I got rid of, but we'll find out when we get to the screen if it doesn't exist. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So I'm going to go to the iPad. I'm going to connect to the system. I'm going to log in. All right. I'm going to go to QA. And I'm going to go to the scan in rework. And then I'm going to pick one of these to scan it in. All right, so that one was good. So when we're looking at the rework screen, and I'll see if I can bring this back up on the big screen now. All right, so on the big screen, what we're going to notice here now is that I have my Traveler ID 6248. When I look down at my number, that is the one that I scanned. That's the 6248. Burnt touch up. It was one part. There's the serial number. So if I'm inspecting it and it's good, I can go to the bottom of the screen and change the 6 to a 7. Now I also can add this part to scrap. I can say, you know what, no matter what we've done with this part, it's my determination it's just scrapped. And I can click, add to scrap, and it'll add it to the scrap. I can change the number of parts in the box to, number of scrap in the box to a 1, and then hit complete it. So right now I'm just going to say the part is good. I'm going to say that gives me 7 in the box. I'm going to complete that. Total number of parts I inspected was 1. And that record's gone. So this Traveler, for that touch-up job, it's done. It's no longer needed. It's now just trash. We know how many items we have in the box. Everything's good with it.